Honourable Prime Minister, thank you for these very interesting remarks, and I think this was of real added value. And the large number of colleagues who are attending this meeting and also indicating that they would like to speak shows us which great interest we in the European Union take in your country. Before I give the floor to colleagues, let me just remind you that we gave our consent to the EU-Armenia Comprehensive and Enhanced Partnership Agreement on the 4th of July at a plenary session, paving the way for deeper cooperation in different sectors, and the vote at that time was 573 votes to 50 with 45 abstentions. And on visas, we said in this resolution, we look forward to the EU considering in due course the opening of visa liberalisation dialogue with Armenia, provided that the conditions for well-managed and secure mobility are in place. Of course, it's up to the member states to decide if the dialogue will start, and of course it needs to be unanimous, but we have been clear in our position. Now, colleagues, I have 12 who would like to speak. If everyone sticks to 2 minutes, then we have 25 minutes Q&A, and then questions, and then we would give the Prime Minister 15 minutes to answer. Is that okay for you that I give the floor to all colleagues? And then you can decide which comments you would like to make. So we start with the chair of the delegation for that region, Sayed Karim. Please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Honourable Prime Minister Pashinyan, Deputy Prime Minister, Foreign Minister, it gives me a tremendous amount of pleasure on behalf of my delegation and my colleagues throughout this Parliament to be able to welcome you here today. It's quite clear, when we first met, nobody could have predicted this particular pathway for Armenia. And it is certainly something from an EU standpoint that is greatly welcomed. And in particular, above everything else, it spells a message of hope and opportunity. Opportunity which is completely backed up by the will of your people. And that has been demonstrated most recently in the election results that were obtained. And may I also thank our colleagues led by Heidi Hautala for their input in that election process, which allows us to feel absolutely confident in forwarding a message of congratulations to you, Prime Minister, and indeed render this Parliament to be in a very strong position to continue building upon the relations that we currently have at this moment in time. I want to make 2 or 3 very brief points after that opening remarks. We have really now a unique opportunity, as I said, and it encompasses internally for Armenia, it encompasses the regional opportunities, and indeed relations with the European Union. Please rest assured, Prime Minister, as Honourable Chairman David McAllister pointed out, the overwhelming vast support of this House sends a very clear message to our sister institutions who quite rightly provided the same support for progress of SEPA through the EU institutions, that our member states, we believe, will carry on with their process of ensuring that they do their rightful duty to provide the ratification processes that are required so we can further deepen that relationship in the way that we seek to. Internally, I've gone over my time. Okay, I'll be very, very quick indeed then in that case. Thank you very much. Then let me just make 1 or 2 comments about the regional situation. Prime Minister, you are quite right. Whilst the borders remain closed, the economic opportunities and the security of Armenia simply does not have the type of support that the people of Armenia would want their government to secure before real progress can be made in other areas. On that, I think you will find that the European Parliament, based upon its previous resolutions, is able to continue giving its support. I will finish with that now.
Thank you, Syed Karim. And now we come to the speakers along the political groups lines. We begin with Mr. Turkish for 2 minutes from the EPP.
I welcome the positive development following the December 2018 parliamentary elections and read the report of the election observation mission as presented by colleague Mrs. Heidi Hautala. In this spirit, my country, together with the European Union, supports Armenia's European future, and we look forward to continuing our work in this regard. We support the country's reform efforts, essential for further cooperation. Considering that there have been positive developments, I believe it is time that we consider supporting the opening of dialogue on visa liberalization, which has already been granted to your neighbors in Moldova and Georgia. Yet, in order to support this, a long list of criteria still needs to be fulfilled, which require that you, Mr. Prime Minister, follow through the commitments your government has taken. I wish you all the best and the continuation of your efforts for the democratization of your country. God bless you.
Thank you, colleague Turkish. For the S&D group, Claire Moody.
Thank you very much, and welcome, Prime Minister, and thank you for taking the time to come and talk to our committee as well. I'm part of the delegation that Sajjad Karim leads to the South Caucasus, and also was on the election observation mission. So it's a pleasure to get this chance to talk to you. Three particular things I wanted to raise. As you pointed out yourself, you have quite a long to-do list to go through, and the areas, the priorities you highlighted of delivering a better economy that delivers for the Armenian people is obviously at the top of that, and your point about the middle classes and developing a middle class. But it's going to take a long time, and so you have an expectation management thing to do in terms of recognizing that it will require some patience for you to be able to deliver reform on a large scale. And so I wondered what your plans are around that kind of profile of the development that will happen. Secondly, communication, and you again talked about the CEPA and its delivery, but communicating in a way that this is delivering for Armenian people. It isn't delivering for the EU, it's about you. This support is there for the Armenian people and what the agreement can deliver. So I wondered what your communication strategy is for the Armenian people. And finally, it is the role of women. And it's, I notice your delegation is quite male, and I know there are some very excellent Armenian women, and I'd appreciate a greater understanding of what you are hoping to do to involve more women in senior roles in Armenia as well. Thank you. And again, welcome and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Claire Moody. Well, Prime Minister, the way we do it here is that you can relax for 20 minutes. All colleagues want to take the floor, and then you can give one big answer in the end. I think that's better. Okay. So in the meantime, enjoy the European Parliament. It's fantastic here. The next is for the Liberals, Mr. Ostrevichus. And please, it's 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Chair. I do remember your restrictive approach towards Liberals, especially time-wise. But I will be really on 2 minutes exactly. Mr. Prime Minister, most welcome to the European Parliament. It's usually a pleasure to talk to our partners worldwide, and especially from South Caucasus in particular. We did notice a very peaceful nature of change which came in Armenia, which is a very specific and I would say outstanding development of political processes in your country. I mean, not all countries in the region you are from follow this path, which is very solid and very important. But, of course, the sense of justice among people must get a very solid ground. I mean, since the expectations with which they came towards those changes must be met. And indeed, we followed some very scandalous corruption cases, disclosures, and involvement of former elites in stealing state properties to unbelievable levels. What should we expect in those many legal cases taken already against those who've been involved in corruption? Could you report any good outcome in this regard? And my second question is about the geopolitical situation. You rightly said, I mean, Armenia sits on the crossroads, north, south, and east, west. And how you would describe, I mean, the present state of relations with Russia, which I believe with great interest follows events in Armenia. And would you be so kind, I mean, to make some comments on hybrid threats, and especially on disinformation and propaganda, which might be used against your country in terms of those political changes? Thank you very much, and good luck for you.
Thank you, Petras. For the Greens, Rebecca Harms, bitte.
So, dear Prime Minister, I also had the pleasure to visit your country immediately after the Velvet Revolution, and then the additional pleasure to come for the snap elections. And I think all colleagues here in from the delegation share the impression that so these elections were coming along with a big enthusiasm and a lot of hope in Armenian society, and we can only congratulate you to what you have achieved so far. But at the same time, we observe that enthusiasm and hope and expectations are now on your shoulders and on the shoulders of the government. What I would like to understand better is what measures, what concrete measures, so besides the agreement and the ratification of SEPA, what concrete measures the EU can do to foster economic growth and better development in Armenia? And especially, I would be interested to know how do you cope with the increase of gas price by Gazprom, which happened immediately after your success in the elections.
Vielen Dank. Next is Mr. Valli for the EFD.
Yes, thank you, President. Welcome to Brussels and to European Parliament. I will read a text from my colleague Fabio Massimo Castaldo that due to commitment he could not be here with us. Is in Italian, so please put your earphones. Okay. Thank you. Signor Primo Ministro, in un periodo estremamente positivo nelle relazioni tra Unione Europea ed Armenia, come dimostrato dalla recente visita del commissario Hahn a Yerevan, dalle parole dell'ambasciatore Svitarsky, nonché dall'approvazione della plenaria di luglio dello scorso anno dall'accordo di partenariato globale rafforzato UE-Armenia, senza dimenticarci delle recenti elezioni parlamentari contraddistinte da un alto grado di trasparenza e allineamento con gli standard internazionali. Sono segnali positivi che devono rappresentare solo l'inizio di un cammino tra l'Unione e che deve far fianco all'Armenia, un paese strategico e amico, legato profondamente dall'Unione Europea da molteplici dinamiche. Tornando all'accordo di partenariato, volevo chiederle come stia progredendo la sua implementazione. Ho letto segnali positivi, ma volevo avere una sua opinione a riguardo, anche alla luce delle dichiarazioni dell'ambasciatore UE che ha accennato alla possibilità di un incremento dei fondi. La mia seconda domanda riguarda il Nagorno-Karabakh. Ho letto di recente il comunicato dei copresidenti del gruppo di Minsk che riporta come lei e il presidente Aliyev abbiate accettato di incontrarvi. Cosa si aspetta da questo incontro, anche considerando i segnali tutto sommato positivi che arrivano dalla linea di contatto? Si aspetta possano esserci novità rilevanti? Infine, signor Primo Ministro, la ringrazio nuovamente e le auguro un proficuo lavoro. Nei recenti anni è successo molto in Armenia, c'è molto da fare, lei ha un programma ambizioso, sappia che saremo al suo fianco in questo sforzo. Grazie.
Molto grazie. And now we come to the next speaker of the EPP, our colleague Štětina.
Děkuji, pane předsedající. Dámy a pánové, prosím, také si vemte sluchátka. Vážený pane premiére, vítejte u nás. Vy jste zmínil události, které u vás nastaly. Já bych chtěl vysoce ocenit politickou kulturu arménského národa, který převrat provedl tak civilizovaným způsobem. A jsem rád, že se převrat v Arménii někdy také nazývá sametovou revolucí, Velvet Revolution, neboli rusky barchetná revolucia. Já jsem sám Čech a je mi potěšením, že jste převzali to jméno od naší sametové revoluce. Vy jste také mluvil, pane premiére, o Náhorním Karabachu. Chtěl bych vám říci, že to byli právě Arméni. A byli to Arméni z výboru komitet Artsach, z výboru Artsach, kteří zahájili vlastně rozpad Sovětského svazu. A ještě mnohem více. Byli to právě představitelé výboru Artsach, kteří už v roce 1988 přijeli do Československa a položili květiny na místo, kde se upálil na protest proti sovětské okupaci náš národní hrdina Jan Palach. Byli velmi stateční ještě za doby Sovětského svazu. V 88. roce to udělali. Byli vůbec první sovětští občané, které se k té okupaci jasně vystavili. A právě Náhorního Karabachu se týká můj dotaz. Můj dotaz je, proč ještě Arménie neuznala Náhorní Karabach. Děkuji za odpověď.
Thank you, colleague. We have 6 more speakers on the list. The list is now closed. Anna Gomes for the S&D Group.
Well, Prime Minister, welcome, and welcome indeed the revolution you protagonized in Armenia. I'm from Portugal, a country that feels that has a special connection with Armenia because of a distinguished Armenian who made a big difference in my country, Mr. Kalust Gulbenkian. I share many of the concerns and the questions that my colleagues have already raised. I would like to tell you that, first of all, if you indeed are keen to recover the assets of this corruption that probably are invested in European countries, you should actually request the support of EU-funded project by UNICRI, United Nations Interregional Crime and Justice Research Institute, functioning here in Brussels, to actually help governments like yours, who are willing to indeed recover the assets that have been stolen by the corrupt. They are doing that work since 2003 from many countries of the Arab Spring. They could do it for you as well. The second question I'd like to ask you, you are supposed to have the most dangerous nuclear power plants in Armenia. And the EU has tried often to indeed engage to decommission safely and to replace it. And I'd like to ask you whether you indeed have an agenda for diversifying the sources of energy, namely to overcome this kind of blackmail that Gazprom is already making with you, and for more strategic concerns, namely, of course, the safety of your people and the whole region. Thank you.
Thank you. For the ECR Group, Anna Fotiga.
Thank you, Chair. Prime Minister, sir, welcome to AFET. We monitor the situation in your country with great interest and very carefully. Actually, I like to learn how close Armenia is to our concern about threats coming from Russia. Well, I do not expect long speeches, but I would like to assess whether anything has changed in this respect. And also, I would like to listen some comments concerning relations with Turkey. Thank you.
Thank you. Next for the Green Group, Barbara Lochbihler, bitte.
Thank you, Chair, and also welcome, Prime Minister. And in your speech, you said the foreign policy will be the same, there will be no changes. I would like to come back to one of a foreign policy issue. You see, it's so necessary nowadays to strengthen a multilateral society, a world society, to strengthen the rule of law. And I think in this it would be also good to have your government under your leadership to strengthen, for example, the international law and international justice. And would you be able to engage to ratify, for example, the Rome Statute, the International Criminal Court, which is also part of the EU? There's an ICC clause in the partnership agreement. Thank you.
Vielen Dank. Next speaker, Helmut Scholz, Entschuldigung.
Danke, Herr Vorsitzender. Auch von mir ein herzliches Willkommen an den Premierminister. Sie haben vorhin ausdrücklich und ausführlich darüber gesprochen, auch sehr eindrucksvoll von dem Zusammenhang zwischen demokratischer Entwicklung in Ihrem Land, sozialen Aspekten, Stärkung des bürgerschaftlichen Engagements und der Armut. Und vielleicht können Sie noch genauer ausführen, welche konkreten wirtschaftlichen Schritte würden Sie jetzt vornehmen in den nächsten Monaten und im nächsten Jahr, um wirklich diese Armut zu überwinden, weil das ja auch eine Grundlage für Korruption sein kann und ist, und wie insbesondere der Sektor der kleinen und mittelständischen Industrie in Armenien, aber auch die landwirtschaftliche Produktion gestärkt werden kann. Danke.
Danke, Helmut Scholz. Nächster Redner ist Michael Gahler.
Yes, thank you very much, Prime Minister, and also welcome from my side. I think all of us wish you well in your enormous tasks that you have ahead of you. The treaty that we have concluded with you deliberately takes care or takes note of the fact that you, well, have to stay or you are inside this Eurasian customs union. I have a quick question in this regard. Does this customs union with Russia mean that actually all your goods that you can export to Russia, is that free of any customs duties? Is that a free market for you at least? That refers to the customs union. The other aspect of the treaty, we are more focusing on, well, the political parts or rule of law and these issues that any country in transformation should focus on. Now, you were quite optimistic, and I have my sincere doubts when you said, well, there is no systemic corruption anymore. Well, I would wish it were so. Perhaps it's other people who have been waiting to get a hold of the gravy train, but I would really doubt that there are no temptations in this regard. Insofar, my question is, as we have quite an experience in helping transformation countries in getting their agenda done, where would you focus on with regard to the cooperation? Is it the justice reform? Is it public procurement? Is it, for instance, reforming the customs administration? Is it the prosecutor general's administration? All these structures that have been inherited from the old days and who were used well by the previous government, well, in the way they were used. Which is your prime focus where you would see this is the priority also in the cooperation with the European Union? Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. If I've got it right, I have one more request to speak. Heidi Hautala.
Thank you very much. And
wait a moment. Charles Tannock, a late request. Well, yes, but you came in very late. Well, look, since it's only a few days left to the 29th of March, we should be very sympathetic to all our British colleagues. Heidi Hautala.
Thank you. Thank you. Very generous of you, Chair. So, Prime Minister, what a difference to have led two election observations missions to Armenia, one on the 2nd of April 2017 and the other one on the 9th of December 2018. I cannot describe the distance between the ways these two elections were held. I would very quickly proceed to the question that really is very essential now that you have such a sufficient majority in your parliament. You could certainly quite swiftly move to the electoral reform that has been recommended and that was already on the table. However, it failed just before the elections with very dramatic consequences for the ruling party. So are you going to remove the 13 open district lists from your system in order to switch to a purely proportional system? And are you introducing the 30% gender quota? So, and I'd also like to know what sort of, do you have a competent opposition in the parliament now that you have such a strong majority through your election victory? Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi, and thanks for the good work you did observing the elections on the ground in Armenia. And the final word goes to Charles Tannock.
Well, thank you, President. Of course, it may not be the 29th of March. We may well have an extension. Who knows? My question to, first of all, congratulations, Prime Minister Pashinyan, on what I saw as real democracy and people power in play in your country, with whom I've had very strong friendship and relations over many years in this parliament. In fact, I was Vice President of the Friends of Armenia in the previous parliament, and I was one of the strong advocates that we needed to have a SEPA-type relationship, given the fact that you had to abandon the DCFTA when you signed the Eurasian Economic Union Treaty. I read in the press that you have anticipated some thawing of relations with Baku and Azerbaijan, which of course we all welcome. So my next question, which is something which I've always felt very strongly about, how about the issue of the closed border with Turkey? Any advances or chances you could solve that very unfair situation whereby Turkey maintains the closed border on the basis of their relationship with Azerbaijan? Sticking strictly to foreign policy, I recently dined with the new president of Georgia. Traditionally, relations were always a little tricky when it came to the issue of minority Armenian rights within Georgia. I gather the president's visiting your country shortly, or may just have visited. Any advances in that respect? And lastly, the one which I've always been fascinated by, particularly now given the strong line American position under President Trump to pull out of the JCPOA and the European Union staying in the JCPOA, your relations with Iran, which you have a land border with, a very small terrestrial road route and connection. How are your relations with Iran, and how are they affected given your very strong relations traditionally for your diaspora community in the United States, given the Trump position, which is very much against the JCPOA? Sorry, just some questions to think about, Prime Minister.
Thank you, colleagues. Prime Minister, more than a dozen colleagues took the floor, and now it's up to you to answer as many questions you wish to do so in the next 15 minutes, and then we will start our voting procedures. Please.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, distinguished member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Thank you for your assessments, and I will try to make full answer to your questions. I will separate three groups of the questions connected, first of all, with the interior processes in Armenia. As I said, I think that, and I'm sure that democracy is irreversible in Armenia, but now we need to make stronger democracy and make it stronger institutionally. And of course, it is very important to continue electoral system reforms, and we will do that. And for this goal, it is very important to make cooperation with the European Union more and more effective and efficient. And I'm glad that we see the readiness by the European Union to support Armenia in the post-reform agenda. And I would like to stress frankly and directly that we are going to fully implement the SEPA, because I think it fully matches with our current agenda, interior agenda, and with our aspirations. As far as anti-corruption activities are concerned, I should say that it is very important for us because we need to make real rule of law in our country, and it isn't possible without fighting corruption. And yes, now we have several very famous criminal cases against the former high officials, and these cases will be continued, and the courts will decide what to do. It's up to our courts to decide the destiny of these cases. But you know, it is very important to state that making our judicial system really independent, it is very important. You know, from very beginning, our government, and personally me, I refused to continue apparent practice of making decisions, court decisions in the government and conveying it to the courts. But now, to be honest, I'm not fully sure on the independence of the courts, Armenian courts, because I'm not sure that the previous government on, let's say, oligarchy didn't keep the tools and leverages to influence on the court. But it doesn't mean that we are going to interfere into court's affair. It means that we are determined to have real reforms to make our judiciary system really free and independent. And there was a question about the stolen assets recovery, and it is very important for us. And of course, we count on European Union support on this matter, and we hope that we will be able to create some real efficient cooperation with the European Union. And what is important, there was a proposal by the OSCE to support Armenian government in stolen assets recovery, and we are going to fully cooperate with our European partners. About Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, you know, it's very important to state that there is no any military solution for this conflict, and we need to create proper atmosphere for peaceful solution. And from very beginning, our government is working on that, and we made, you know, it is very important to work on creating proper atmosphere. And in September, I've made actually unprecedented statement in our parliament saying that any solution of Nagorno-Karabakh conflict should be acceptable for Armenian people, for people of Nagorno-Karabakh, and for Azerbaijani people. And to be honest, it was unprecedented announcement by the Armenian Prime Minister, and at least for last 20 and more years. And I had a hope that after my announcement, we will have the similar announcement from Azerbaijan, by the Azerbaijani president, but unfortunately this hope isn't fulfilled yet, And in contrary, we are hearing continuous threats from Azerbaijan that they are going to solve Nagorno-Karabakh conflict by using force and without consideration of the rights and interests of Nagorno-Karabakh people and people of Armenia. And I can say that in this situation, it's very hard to imagine that we will be able to solve this conflict very soon. For solution, we need to bring Azerbaijan into dialogue mood, but unfortunately, we can't say that we have such a situation now. And what is very important, it's about the format of negotiation process. You know, it is internationally recognized that Nagorno-Karabakh conflict has three sides: Azerbaijan, Nagorno-Karabakh, and Armenia, and it was internationally recognized in 1994 OSCE summit in Budapest. But in fact, we have only, not now, but until now, we had only two parts around the negotiation table, and unfortunately, Armenia and Azerbaijan made negotiations without Nagorno-Karabakh. But problem is that previous leaders of the Armenia, they were from they are deriving from Nagorno-Karabakh, and maybe they consider that they can represent Nagorno-Karabakh as well. But I'm not from Nagorno-Karabakh, and I'm Prime Minister of Armenia, and I'm not Prime Minister of Nagorno-Karabakh, because people of Nagorno-Karabakh, they aren't participating in Armenian elections. They aren't citizens of Armenia. So I can, I would do that, will do that. I can negotiate on behalf of Armenia, Republic of Armenia, but I can't negotiate on behalf of Nagorno-Karabakh. So the second step is to create proper format of negotiation that will bring us to the substantial negotiations, and I would like to insist that it isn't possible without engagement of Nagorno-Karabakh into negotiation process. And as far as Russia is concerned, you know, the good news is that European Union doesn't pose any geopolitical conditions in the relations with Armenia, because our cooperation agenda with the European Union, it is fully it is fully a reform agenda which is described in the SEPA, and we are going to implement fully this reform agenda. And of course, Russia, our relations with Russia are very important for us, and we're continuing to be strategic partners. And our cooperation, the most part of our cooperation is connected with the Eurasian Economic Union and the security agenda. And I don't think that there are contradictions on our relationship agenda with the European Union and Russia. And in these two relations, we are transparent, and it is very important to insist that there is no any plot against Russia in our relations with European Union, and there is no any plot against, for example, the European Union in the cooperation and relation with Russia. Of course, cooperation in the field of energy is very important, and we are going to develop our relations with Russia, but with Iran as well, because you know that we have cooperation in energy with Iran as well, and we are going to further develop our relations. And recently I made a visit to the Iran, and we were discussing the opportunities on further development of our cooperation in the field of energy. And which concerns to the concrete steps, you know, our ideology is the same concerning to the political changes and economic changes. What was the main ideology of our political changes? It was encouraging people to make concrete steps in deciding their own future. And in terms of economic changes and economic revolutions, we are going to encourage our people to make economic activities. Why this is important? Because before the revolution, we had monopolies and oligarchies that restricted the opportunities for economic activities, and now we opened the field, and now we are going to make level playing field, which is very important. We are going to reform our tax code and to support our small and medium businesses, and we are going to create a new niche in our economy named microeconomy, and we are going to free these people from taxes, and we are going to make regulatory simplifications to make our investment climate more and more attractive for foreign investments, and which is very important. We are going to make to develop our infrastructure, etc. My time is ending, and for all this agenda, of course, it's very important to have support, technical and financial support by the European Union, and advisory support, why not, and to make our democracy stronger institutionally, economically and politically. But for me, there is no doubt that democracy and rule of law in Armenia irreversible. There is no chance for comeback for corrupt system. Thank you very much.
Prime Minister Pashinyan, let me thank you on behalf of all our colleagues for coming. I thought this was a very valuable exchange of views. Good luck to you and your ministers, and have a fruitful further round of meetings here in Brussels. God bless your work.
Thank you very much.